An eyewitness told GB News a car has just rammed through the crowd in the city centre near Dale Street and Water Street. And in a statement, Merseyside Police told GB News this. We are currently dealing with reports of a road traffic collision in Liverpool city centre. We were contacted at just after 6 p.m. today, Monday, the 26th of May, following reports a car had been in collision with a number of pedestrians on Water Street. And the car stopped at the scene and a male has been detained. Emergency services are currently on the scene and we will issue more updates as we have them. Well, joining me now to discuss this is Graham Wetton. He's a former Metropolitan Police officer. Graham, welcome to the show. A pleasure to have your company. A very alarming and serious situation. A lot of graphic footage circulating on social media of this collision. Clearly seems to show, we don't know anything about the motive yet, and we must not speculate, of course, but it seems to show a substantial collision between a car and a number of pedestrians on this victory parade.
Yeah, good evening, Martin. Yeah, very worrying information coming out of Liverpool. Victory parade. Those are normally fairly well cordoned off in most areas, depending how long it is. And again, I don't know the full details. It's too early yet to have had a look at the map, the route that the bus was taking, where the pedestrians were, the access for vehicles, if there were roads closed off, how the roads were closed off if they were. So they're normally the safety measures that are put in place at these sort of victory parades. And we've seen other victory parades in other areas over the last couple of days for various football clubs celebrating their victories. But again, somehow or somewhere, this car has managed to come through, if there were any barriers, come through any barriers and then come into and be in collision with the pedestrians. Still waiting for updates from Merseyside Police, but very worrying information and sees coming out of Liverpool tonight. And
some of the footage too graphic for us to show on the television, but the footage we did see on our screen there, Graham Wetton, is of a substantial police response. We can see officers in high-vis vests on duty swarming around that vehicle as it reached a standstill. It appears to be like a long people carrier type vehicle, perhaps a small van. For those who can't see the pictures, they're listening on radio, but there's got to be at least 40, 50 police officers there around that vehicle. But you're exactly right. As you can see on your screen there, look, a huge police presence, as you'd expect out of such a live event. But you're exactly right, Graham Wetton. There'll be a lot of questions asked about how a vehicle could simply be driven into this area.
Yeah, you see huge crowds there. And again, a significant police response running towards the vehicle. All the yellow jackets will be the police officers there going towards the actual vehicle itself. And you're right, it looks like a fairly significant sized vehicle. So it's not a small vehicle, but it's clearly come to collision with some of the pedestrians there. Huge emergency service response. Very early times yet to start speculating as to the cause. My understanding so far, and prompt information from Merseyside Police, that the car actually stopped at the scene and a male has been detained. So again, they have the driver of the vehicle detained. So clearly there's an avenue there to investigate as to how they got where they were and what their motive, what their intention was.
Again, some of the footage simply too graphic to broadcast. The car appears to strike one individual first and then carries on into a crowd. The vehicle seems to have come to a standstill simply because it ran into a crowd and ran out of anywhere to go. And at that point, Graham Wetton, obviously thousands and thousands of, well, until this point, jubilant fans on the streets flocking around the vehicle. And then at that point, of course, the emergency services, the police officers coming in, not only to detain and arrest the individual, but presumably to try and save his life.
Yeah, that'll be one of the concerns, to try and get in there and actually get the vehicle, make sure the vehicle is stopped and it is secure, because as people move away, cars don't tend to stop just because a person or a couple of people in the way of them. Cars are quite, heavy vehicles, can cause significant injury, can drive through crowds of people, as we've seen in other places, in other locations. So officers are trying to get there to make sure the vehicle has stopped. The driver isn't going to drive away anywhere else and run over anybody else. So the element of danger to members of the public in the crowd to stop anything further from happening. And again, secure the driver, remove them from the scene. Bit of element of safety for the driver. Yes, you're right. But again, they want to know what's happened, how they've actually got to this stage, motive, intention, how they got to be in that crowd of people, what route they took. So they'll now be looking for treat the injured people first of all, then start speaking to numerous witnesses that are seen. Where that car entered, how far it's driven, how far it's travelled, who it's been in collision with, anything said, anything done, those sort of things. Basic investigative practices from now, and they'll be happening as we're talking.
And of course, Graham Wetton, a hugely logistical issue here of getting the injured away for treatment, for safety. Of course, getting emergency vehicles in will be incredibly demanding with such crowds. So operationally, Graham, what would be the method of dealing with this here? Just watching the footage here, it's really quite startling footage.
Yeah.
An air ambulance, I believe, went in because clearly that's a direct route in, a fast method of removal to a local hospital as quickly as possible. But getting emergency vehicles in there through those crowds would have been a huge challenge in itself.
It would, yes. They'd have to clear. They'd like to try and clear the members of the public who are there. A route, to clear them from a route they will identify for the emergency vehicles like ambulances to travel into the area, and then an exit route, an egress route for them. So clear a path for emergency service vehicles so they can reach the scene as quickly as possible, because time really does matter in these cases. If the air ambulance was coming in, they have to clear a safe area for that to land and then get the crew to the scene so they can actually use their professionalism, their expertise at the scene to only seriously injured people. But that's a key factor when you deal with these incidents, and they're very quick, very spontaneous. Is almost like keeping a calm head when you're on scene, identifying a suitable location to get the paramedics, the ambulance vehicles, and numerous vehicles will be travelling to the scene. So a clear route in and a fast route to the nearest hospital, but trying to get the public to stay away, so no more people to come to the scene, but stay away from the area so the emergency services can access that location and then leave it as quickly as possible with those injured people.
In fact, Graham Wetton, bear with me, please, because we do have a statement. We just received it from a North West Ambulance Service spokesperson, said this: NWAS, North West Ambulance Service, is supporting an incident in Liverpool city centre following reports of a road traffic collision. We are currently assessing the situation and working with other members of the emergency services. Our priority is to ensure people receive the medical help they need as quickly as possible. And updates will be published on this page and Mersey Police as we know more. So again, a standard statement there. Obviously, they're just trying to get some information out. Graham Wetton, operationally now, clearly this individual has been detained. He'll be arrested, you think fairly rapidly charged. Again, we don't know anything about the motive. That will come out under questioning. How might this work operationally now moving forward?
I don't think you'll see a rapid charge. That these things can take some time. They can be held for up to 24 hours initially. Then they can get warrants of further detention. So it almost, once we've dealt with the casualties, secure the scene first of all to make sure you secured all the evidence, including the vehicle, the route taken, all CCTV evidence, etc., will be downloaded. Any witnesses, as I mentioned, number of witnesses there, huge crowds. So number of people, mobile phone downloads, etc. So quite a long investigative process, potentially. But they do have the driver of the vehicle arrested. He will then go into interviews, probably maybe even one interview tonight, then likely to go into a rest period, and then maybe interviews tomorrow. So I'm not expecting any charges anytime soon from this, if any do arise. But a slower process now, investigative perspective, but they need to secure, once they've secured the scene, your priority has to then be the casualties, to get the casualties as quickly as possible to hospitals and get them treated. So I would imagine an hour and 15 minutes after this first broke, still trying to get people to hospitals and get them treated. So the suspect, to a certain degree, will take a slightly backward step here, investigatively. They'll probably have him at the police station by now. Booking in procedure can take up to about an hour or so. So then you've got to call a solicitor out, get some sort of assessment done. So it can take some time before you even get into an interview room.
Yeah, and as I said, nobody should leap to any methods or reasons. There is the possibility it's just simply a vehicle out of control. There's all kinds of evidence will be analysed, and I'm imagining, Graham Wetton, central to that, this is a very, very heavily filmed part of Liverpool city centre, as indeed any city centre is, piecing together CCTV imagery, methodically, meticulously trying to backtrack where that vehicle came from, its origin, how it accessed what you think would be an area completely shut off and isolated from road traffic like this. So very much now exhaustive and a huge trail of evidence being pieced together bit by bit.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, and again, you mentioned it's the city centre, the number of people with mobile phones, etc. So a huge amount of potential evidence and information the investigation team will have to go through. Just looking at the route the vehicle took in, was there anything obstructing it? Was it even in the area before the parade took place? Or is it someone that's returned to their vehicle, picked it up? So it's in an area that's potentially been ostensibly cleared, but maybe there were just a couple, a barrier or two it had to go through to reach the crowd itself. So a number of avenues for the investigation teams to look at with the suspect. But as I mentioned earlier, your prime concern at the moment, an hour and 15, 20 minutes into this, is just making sure that scene is secure, moving people away, getting them clear so the ambulances, the paramedics can come in, treat people, identify the hospitals they're going to, and make sure they get a clear run there. So it's still the scene is the focus here. The suspect's likely to be placed into a police vehicle and taken to a police station by now. So we're now focusing on the scene, the injured parties, and speaking to witnesses, looking at people, speaking to people, who saw what, where did the vehicle come from, anything said or done, the estimates around speed, the noise of the engine, braking, etc. They want to know everything, the full facts of what happened before this awful incident took place. So huge number of witnesses to speak to, huge number potentially of CCTV cameras with evidential footage that has to be looked at, and pinning down the actual time the vehicle came in, what time it started, where did it come in from, the route it took, and how it actually eventually stopped. Did it stop of either mechanical reasons, or did the driver stop it? Or was it just literally the crowd around it or the police officers running towards it? So a number of factors that need to be clarified by those on scene. Still early stages there. Wrong to speculate about any motive or intention or the cause of this. That's the job of the investigation team, by speaking to witnesses, the driver, and then looking at the evidential CCTV evidence to see if we can match it all together.
And Graham Wetton, the imagery we have, which is taken by a bystander, by somebody. There were thousands of fans, not only at ground level, but also in the office blocks, the residential area. Well, it's primarily city centre, central business district, and there are, I see here, 5, 6, 7 stories high, these blocks. And a lot of this footage was taken from people inside those places, looking down, expecting, of course, to be filming a jubilant victory parade, and they almost inadvertently caused what now looks increasingly like a tragic incident. So there will be an immense amount of people and evidence now, probably, which will all be pulled together by the police to piece this all together. And just to repeat, some of this imagery on social media is incredibly graphic.
Yeah, and I warn people maybe before they start looking on social media at some of the images, because you're right, there are some graphic stuff out there. I'd imagine Merseyside police at some point in the next few hours will either put a link up for people to download stuff, or put an appeal out for people with any evidence, information, etc., to submit it to them so they can have a look at it. But probably an appeal to stop sharing it. Bear in mind, there'll be people with friends and loved ones who have gone to this celebration, and they'll be probably drastically trying to get in touch with people to see if they're well, etc. So again, you have to be careful what you share on social media, because clearly it could be people who recognise loved ones, haven't heard from them, and are extremely concerned about it. That's an aspect that police has to manage very carefully, is letting people know when someone, a loved one, etc., a family member is potentially involved in this and potentially injured, is getting to them first, informing them with a police officer, rather than seeing something on either a TV screen or on social media footage. That can be exceptionally distressing for them.